In this video, we're going to discuss how to create some basic graphics within SPSS. While there's a lot of ways to approach creating graphics within SPSS, not all of them intuitive or where you'd necessarily expect to find them, we're going to stick to the basics in this video, focusing on how we can create a scatter plot, a histogram, and a pie chart. So for basic graphs in SPSS, I'm going to go to the Graphs menu, and while there's a ton of ways I can go about doing this, I'll, in this video, use legacy dialogues to select specifically the graph that I'm trying to create. I'll start out with a scatter plot. So there's some different options here depending on the type of scatter plot I'm trying to make. I'm going to do a simple scatter plot, and you'll see that I have several options here. I'm going to right click and do display variable names, and then add variables to my y-axis, which is the height of the dot, and then my x-axis, which is the left-right width of the dot. I'm going to use age as my x-axis, and I'll use the positive scale score as my y-axis. Depending on the application you're using, sometimes it can be great to overlay colors for the dots depending on a categorical variable. The option where we do that is set markers by, and in this case, I'm going to overlay the color based on gender. I select OK, and SPSS goes about creating my scatter plot with different colors for different genders, where blue represents male, green represents female, and purple represents other. Note that on the bottom axis is my age, and on the vertical axis is my positive scale score. You'll see that the positive scale score is not exactly continuous. In fact, it goes up by 0.2s in how we've calculated it. So this isn't particularly a great example of a scatter plot because we're seeing so much alignment with the variable. The other thing that this comes out of, actually, even if we had variables that many would consider continuous, you can actually see the widths, like in age, is having a lot of kind of discretization, and that's because we just have so much data within the scatter plot that's being overlapped on top of one another. But we can, real quick, kind of see that by and large we're seeing a lot of young others, and then we're seeing a good mix of males and females within the middle categories, and a few more older males, and this does align with what we saw previously. So this is quickly how we create a scatter plot with different colors based on a categorical variable in SPSS. All right, for our next plot, let's go on to Graphs Legacy Dialogues and create a histogram. There's a variety of reasons you may want to create a histogram. These are great summaries of, sometimes you use them for residuals, sometimes you just want to look at a variable distribution and compare it to another distribution. You can add a normal curve onto your histogram, which is nice if you're looking at residuals or trying to determine if the variable is normally distributed. You know, I'll go on and do that here for display normal curve over age and hit OK to run this. Now we can see that age is definitely not normally distributed. In fact, it is very heavily weighted on the bottom tail. So this is a right tail skewed distribution, right skewed, and we can see that definitely we have some kind of not normal distribution going on here. Within plots, I can double click and edit how many bins are in the histogram. To do this, I double click on the bars themselves, and you can see that a menu comes up that says binning. Right now it's automatically set, but I can click custom and then select the number of bars that I'd like to see. So for instance, maybe instead of however many bars there are here, I'd like to see 10 bars instead. So I can select 10 and click apply. You'll note that with 10 bars, the look and feel of the graph changes. So I can edit that and see what is most descriptive of the data that I'm trying to represent. So this could either, depending on what you're trying to show, be more or less descriptive. All right, for the final one in this video, we'll do pie graphs. So again, I'll go to Graphs, Legacy Dialogs, and then go down to pie. I will pause for a moment to note that we did create a pie chart in a previous video as part of one of our statistical options in Analyze. So again, there's many ways to create these graphs, but if I just want to create the pie graph, this is the way that I'd go about doing it. This depends on the value for my data, how my data is formatted. So I'm going to go on and select the first formatting. And here I want to enter define slices by for my variable. So I'll do source to see where all of the, actually, just for a little change of pace, let's do country. This wasn't what I planned to do, but let's do country to see where all the different countries of the respondents come from. This will be a very big pie chart, but we'll see how SPSS handles it. Go on and select OK to create my pie chart. And it takes a moment to think about it because, again, it's processing a lot of information. Oh my goodness, that is quite the pretty pie chart. So I can see that I have the massive majority of the participants coming from my orange category, which I'm trying to see if I can determine which category that is. I believe that's a hidden category here, but it should be the United States. I can double click this and select the different colors that I want to do and a variety of different options that I can change here. I'll just leave them, though I might actually change my label if I can. Perfect. So I'll go on and change this label to, instead of saying inferred from technical information, and SPSS is glitching out a little bit with the amount of data I'm asking it to handle. But let me click in here. And then I would like to change this to, instead of saying all that, just say country, which I think is going to be a much more interpretable axis title. I'll go on and click close, X, and now I can see the updated graphic in my report with a much more interpretable axis title of country. I'll note that if I were actually doing this, what I would probably do is collapse the lowest countries. You can see there's a ton of tiny countries, or tiny percentage and proportion countries listed within here. I would probably collapse the lowest, say 30 or 40 within an other category, so that I'm focusing on displaying the higher proportioned countries. Orange, this tan color, pink, gray, and orange might be my biggest countries I'd want to highlight. Maybe a few of these other ones, this pink, this orange, and maybe a couple of these other ones are large enough to be included, and I could do a cutoff, and that way the graph wouldn't be so visually overwhelming. So that would be part of my variable coding, where I collapse the variable codes into a categorical variable with fewer categories. That wouldn't be part of the graphic creation. In fact, the graphic creation process would look identical to what I've already done, save that I would use the new variable instead of the current country variable in order to create this graphic. But it's pretty cool, and it's cool to see how SPSS handles not just so many variables. I think we had 36,000 observations here, but so many different categories that those observations fall into when it's creating such a complex graphic. All right, well, this has been how to do some basic graphs in SPSS, quickly discussing how we can create a two-dimensional scatter plot with different colors based on a third categorical variable, a histogram with adjustable width bars, and pie charts where we can look at the relative contribution of the percentages for each category and change the label name to be something perhaps a little bit more interpretable.